Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. We really do love hearing your thoughts.
Always good to be back.
Today, we're going deep on a topic that's both fascinating and a little bit unsettling.
Okay.
It's the future of global power.
All right.
Specifically, we are going to be looking at the rivalry between the U.S. and China.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you might be thinking, oh no, not another U.S.-China debate.
Yeah.
But you tea. We've got a twist.
Okay.
We asked a cutting-edge AI, it's called DeepSeek, some big questions.
Okay. All right.
Like, who will win this so-called Cold War? Who is going to rule the world in the next 10 to 20 years?
Yeah.
Which regime is better? And, most importantly for you, where's the best place to live in this changing world?
Wow, that's a lot.
And DeepSeek gave us some seriously thought-provoking answers.
I bet.
And to help us unpack it all, we've got our expert with us today.
Hi.
They're a master at breaking down complex information, connecting the dots.
That's what I do, and I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. All right, so DeepSeek kicked things off by comparing the U.S. and China, and it went straight to the heart of the matter, a potential war. Thankfully, DeepSeek sees a direct conflict as unlikely, but it's still a chilling thought.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, war is never good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it analyzed this possibility through several lenses, starting with military strength.
Right. And what's interesting is that DeepSeek doesn't just look at who has the bigger guns. It looks at how each country approaches warfare.
Okay.
It acknowledges that the U.S. has this massive global reach with bases and allies all over the world, plus incredibly advanced technology.
So they have a lot going for them.
But DeepSeek points out that China has a different kind of advantage. They're playing on home turf, and
Right.
they've developed some clever asymmetric strategies.
Asymmetric strategies. Okay, you got to break that down for us. What does that even mean in this context?
So imagine you're playing a game of chess.
Mm.
The U.S. might have the more powerful pieces, but China's using unconventional tactics to try to outmaneuver them.
I see.
Think cyber warfare, disrupting critical infrastructure, and using AI-powered systems to gain an edge. DeepSeek even mentions these carrier-killer missiles designed to specifically target U.S. aircraft carriers, those floating fortresses the U.S. relies on. It's a way for China to level the playing field even if they don't have the same kind of firepower on paper.
Oh, okay. So it's like they're playing a totally different game then.
Exactly. And this difference in approach goes beyond just the military. DeepSeek then looked at economic power, and it's a similar story. The U.S. still has the largest GDP in the world. The dollar is the global reserve currency, and Silicon Valley is this powerhouse of innovation. But DeepSeek doesn't discount China's economic strength.
I mean, China's been dubbed the world's factory for a reason, right? They make basically everything.
Precisely. And DeepSeek recognizes that. They produce a huge chunk of the world's goods, and they have this massive Belt and Road Initiative, which is all about securing trade routes and building influence across Asia, Africa, and even into Europe.
I see.
It's kind of like a modern-day Silk Road, but with a much grander vision.
Wow. So it's not just about how much money each country has, but how they use it to exert influence, right?
That's the key takeaway.
And it's fascinating.
And DeepSeek even gives a concrete example of how this economic rivalry plays out. It brings up the trade war. That went from 2018 to 2024.
Oh, yeah.
Both sides suffered, but DeepSeek points out that China, because they're more reliant on exports, actually felt the pain more.
Okay.
It just goes to show how interconnected those two economies are, but also how economic strategies can be kind of weaponized, in this global power struggle.
Yeah. So we're already seeing DeepSeek go beyond just these really simplistic comparisons. It's looking at how military and economic power are wielded in very different ways by each country. It's making this rivalry a lot more nuanced than just who's bigger and stronger.
And we're just scratching the surface here. DeepSeek's analysis gets even more interesting when we delve into the world of technology and global influence.
All right. Well, it seems we've got a lot more to cover.
Yeah.
This is just the beginning of our deep dive, so make sure you stick around for part 2, where we'll unpack even more of DeepSeek's fascinating insights.
Yeah, it was good.
And while you're waiting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. We're always eager to hear your thoughts.
Always. Welcome back. I'm eager to dive into the next layer of DeepSeek's analysis. Where we left off, it felt like we were just starting to understand how differently the U.S. and China approach this kind of global game of chess.
Totally. Yeah, it's not just about brute strength. It's about strategy and leveraging what you're good at.
Right.
And speaking of leverage, where does technology fit into all of this?
Right.
From what I gather, DeepSeek sees both the U.S. and China as technological powerhouses, but again, in distinct ways.
That's right. It's almost like they're excelling in different events at the Tech Olympics, right?
Okay.
DeepSeek highlights the U.S. dominance in cutting-edge fields, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, which, by the way, could make your phone's processing power look like a child's toy.
Oh.
And, of course, all those big tech giants like Google and Microsoft.
Yeah, those companies are huge.
Yeah.
But China's been making some serious moves in the tech world too, haven't they? I feel like they're not just copying anymore, but they're really innovating.
Absolutely. And DeepSeek recognizes this. It points out that China's pouring resources into research and development, and it's paying off. They're already leading the charge in 5G infrastructure. Imagine lightning-fast internet everywhere, and they've developed some seriously sophisticated surveillance technology.
Yeah, that's a bit concerning.
Yeah.
But so who does DeepSeek think will ultimately win this tech race? It's a nail-biter.
Right. Well, surprisingly, DeepSeek gives them both about a 50-50 shot at dominating the tech landscape.
50-50, wow.
Yeah.
I'm curious what factors tip the scales in that direction. What's holding each country back, or what are their strengths even?
Yeah, so DeepSeek takes a lot into account. On the U.S. side, there's the Chip Alliance with Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan. This gives them an edge in making semiconductors, the brains of all our electronics. But DeepSeek also acknowledges China's state-driven approach, where they can pour massive resources into specific areas and scale up production incredibly quickly. It's a classic showdown between private sector innovation and government-led development, and it's too close to call.
Okay, so the tech race is a nail-biter.
Yeah.
But what about global influence? The U.S. has been the kind of dominant player on the world stage for decades, right?
True, but DeepSeek's analysis suggests things are changing. The U.S. still has its network of powerful alliances. Think NATO, that's the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which was formed after World War II to counter Soviet expansion, and newer partnerships like the Quad and AUKUS, which are focused on the Indo-Pacific region. These alliances give the U.S. serious leverage in global affairs.
Okay. But haven't we all kind of seen China's influence growing steadily over the years?
Exactly. DeepSeek doesn't downplay that at all. It points to China's growing influence in what's called the Global South, basically countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America.
Right.
China's been using its economic clout, especially through that Belt and Road Initiative, to forge partnerships and secure resources in these regions. It's a very different approach to global influence, more about economic diplomacy than, say, military might.
It's interesting. So it's almost like the U.S. is leading a band with its allies as the musicians, while China's conducting a symphony of economic partnerships.
That's a great analogy. And DeepSeek even highlights how these different approaches to global influence play out in real-world situations. For example, the U.S. was able to rally Europe against Russia during the Ukraine conflict, demonstrating the strength of their alliances. But at the same time, China was brokering a peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran, showing their growing influence in the Middle East. It's a multipolar world in action.
So it sounds like DeepSeek's painting a picture of a much more complex world than we often see in the headline.
And we're not done yet, because DeepSeek's analysis went beyond just those external power dynamics. It took a deep dive into the internal stability of both the U.S. and China. And what it found might surprise you.
Surprised me. Really. Both countries seem so strong from the outside. What could possibly be lurking beneath the surface?
Well, that's just it. We often get caught up in the image countries project, but DeepSeek was looking at long-term trends, and what it found is that both the U.S. and China are facing some significant internal challenges.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. Tell me more. What kind of challenges?
Well, for the U.S., DeepSeek highlights political polarization as a major vulnerability. Think about how divided American society has become in recent years. DeepSeek also points to the looming debt crisis as a ticking time bomb. If that debt bubble bursts, it could severely damage the U.S. economy and its global standing.
Yeah, those are definitely some serious concerns. But what about China? They always seem so unified, so economically stable.
Yeah, that's the image they project. But DeepSeek sees cracks in the facade. One major concern is their shrinking population. Think about it. Fewer people means fewer workers and consumers, which can have a ripple effect on the entire economy. DeepSeek also points to the risk of economic stagnation. Their model of rapid growth might be reaching its limits, and that could lead to internal unrest.
Wow, I never thought about it that way. It seems like even giants have their weaknesses. Do you think DeepSeek is reading too much into these internal challenges? I mean, is it being too pessimistic?
Well, DeepSeek isn't pulling these concerns out of thin air. It draws on real-world events to illustrate its points. You remember the 2020 U.S. Capitol riots?
Yeah, sure.
That was a stark reminder of how political polarization can erupt into violence, right? And destabilize even a powerful democracy.
Right.
And for China, DeepSeek points to the recent zero COVID protests as evidence of simmering discontent among the population. Even in a tightly controlled society, people will push back when they feel their needs aren't being met.
Yeah, that makes sense. So both the U.S. and China have their own kind of internal demons to wrestle with. It's a good reminder that even superpowers aren't invincible.
Exactly. And it makes predicting the future even more challenging. So, after analyzing all these factors, military might, economic power, technology, global influence, and even internal stability, did DeepSeek actually declare a winner in this Cold War?
That's the million-dollar question. Spill the beans. Who does DeepSeek think will come out on top?
Here's where it gets really interesting. DeepSeek actually suggests that there might not be a clear winner in this rivalry.
No clear winner, so it's a stalemate.
Yeah.
A never-ending game of tug-of-war between these two giants.
Not necessarily. Remember, DeepSeek sees a hot war as devastating for everyone involved, but it doesn't believe the future is set in stone either.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So if there's no clear winner, what does DeepSeek see happening? What's the future look like, according to this super smart AI? All right, we're back, ready to uncover DeepSeek's grand prediction for the future.
I'm ready.
We've heard about the military maneuvers, the economic chess matches, the race for technological dominance, and even the internal struggles that both the U.S. and China are facing. So what's the verdict? Who's going to rule the world in, like, 10 or 20 years?
All right, drumroll, please. DeepSeek predicts a multipolar world.
A multipolar world.
Yeah.
You mean not the U.S. as the lone superpower? Not China rising up to take its place, but a world with multiple centers of power?
Exactly. It challenges this whole idea we've had for so long, this idea of a single, dominant, global superpower calling all the shots.
Wow, that's a pretty significant departure from what we usually hear. Why does DeepSeek think things are going to shake out this way?
Well, it all comes back to those trends we've been discussing throughout this, whole deep dive. DeepSeek points to the diffusion of technology. Think about it. It's not just the U.S. innovating anymore. You've got countries like India, South Korea, even smaller nations are making breakthroughs in fields like AI and renewable energy. So the playing field is kind of leveling out.
So the old guard is being challenged by new players coming onto the scene.
Exactly. And then there are the demographics. DeepSeek highlights that both the U.S. and China are dealing with aging populations, and that can strain social safety nets and it can slow down economic growth. Meanwhile, other parts of the world have younger, growing populations, which can translate into a larger workforce and more dynamic economies.
So it's not just about technology and money, it's about people power, too.
Absolutely. And let's not forget those geopolitical alliances we talked about. The U.S. still has its network of allies, but China's been busy building its own web of partnerships through initiatives like the Belt and Road. DeepSeek sees this trend continuing, leading to a more fragmented world where power is distributed across different blocs and regions.
It almost sounds like it'll be a much more complex and unpredictable world than the one that we're used to.
Yeah.
Kind of makes you wonder who to read for, doesn't it?
Well, it's not about rooting for a particular side. It's about understanding that the future is likely to be messy and multipolar with no single country holding all the cards. But DeepSeek doesn't stop there. It throws in some wild card scenarios that could really shake things up.
Oh, okay. Wild card scenarios. This sounds like something out of like a sci-fi movie.
Right.
What kind of curveballs does DeepSeek see coming our way?
Well, imagine a major breakthrough in artificial intelligence. What if a country, or even a private company, develops artificial general intelligence, AGI, an AI that surpasses human capabilities in almost every way? That would be a game changer with, unpredictable consequences for global power.
Yeah, it's like something out of a science fiction novel. But it doesn't sound entirely impossible, does it?
Exactly. And then there's the, ever-looming threat of climate catastrophes. What if a nation or a group of nations figured out how to effectively adapt to climate change, maybe even reverse some of its effects? They would have a massive advantage over countries struggling to cope with rising sea levels, extreme weather, and resource scarcity.
That's a very sobering thought. It almost feels like we're at a crossroads.
Yeah.
And the choices we make today will determine which path we take.
And DeepSeek throws in one more twist: the rise of a dark horse nation. This could be a country we're not even paying attention to right now. A nation that suddenly emerges as a global player, due to some unforeseen advantage. Maybe a technological innovation, a wealth of natural resources, or even just a really strategic geographical location.
So it's a reminder that the future is full of surprises.
Definitely.
So what you're saying is that while DeepSeek predicts a multipolar world, there are still a lot of unknowns, a lot of factors that could tip the scales in unexpected ways.
Mm.
It's both kind of exciting and a little terrifying, to be honest.
Absolutely. And while we can't predict the future with certainty, DeepSeek's analysis gives us a valuable framework for understanding the forces at play and the potential scenarios that could unfold. It encourages us to think critically, and engage with the world around us, knowing that we have a role to play in shaping the future.
Well said. And I think that's a great place to wrap up our deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We really have.
From military might to economic power, technological innovation to internal struggles, and even wild card scenarios that could, change everything. DeepSeek has given us a lot to ponder, and hopefully it's inspired you to think more deeply about the future we're all creating, together.
It's true.
Before we sign off, a huge thank you to our expert for walking us through this fascinating analysis. And to all of you listening, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave us a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts on DeepSeek's predictions and what you think the future holds. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.